4246-4, and A, dis- discussion job performance superintendent mid-year review, Rhode Island General Law 42465A1, and B, discussion South Kingstown ESP negotiations, Rhode Island General Law 42465A2. Individuals have been notified, including the right to have any discussion held in open session.
I'll make a motion to, convene executive session.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Good evening. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6:04. So we're going to start with a roll call. Stuart Lander,
Present.
Kate Manzanati, Paula Whitford, Michelle Brousseau, James Restivo,
Here.
and I, Carol Vetter, am here. And Brad Shear is here. He's just not in the room at the moment. So please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Do I have a motion to seal the minutes of the executive committee? Executive session.
I'll make a motion to seal the minutes of the executive session.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. There were no votes taken in executive session. So we now have comments from the community. Mary, do you want to say anything? So, yeah. Okay, we're going to close community comment for the moment. So that will move us to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. That'll bring us to school committee business. A, discussion, left field update presentation. Welcome.
I believe the presentations were sent ahead of time, or would you like me to plug in? Ah, perfect. Hey. Okay. Good evening, everyone. In case you don't remember, my name is Chris Spiegel. My partner, Kate Turner, has been running most of the day-to-day recently. However, I'm super excited to be back, especially with all the great news that we're here to tell you about today. And of course, I hope, as you saw, just coming up, we've got steel going up, right? And the snow did not stop us at all. So congrats to Gilbane for keeping us on track, even with a little bit of snow. I know that we're not used to it, but and of course, I also want to say this. I have been to 5 different schools today. By far, the snow removal has been the best at this school. So whoever you need to tell, better than Barrington, better than Providence, better than East Greenwich, the snow removal at this high school was the best I've seen. So next slide, please. For the agenda today, we have a general overview on the high school schedule update, and we'll talk about construction at South Kingstown High School. And then we've got a pretty substantial Curtis Corner update as well. Next slide, please. I guess I should start by saying this. The project is currently on time and under budget. At the town council meeting just last week, we did sign our guaranteed maximum proposal, and it was $2 million under budget. So that's a nice way of saying our contingency is either up $2 million at this point. Decisions about how contingency gets allocated, of course, are decided by the school building committee task force, but we're very happy to be $2 million under budget at this time. And again, the project is on schedule. As you can see from the list here, we are in the thick of construction. We have steel going on right now. Steel is going to take us out. Oh, do you want to actually give the schedule update on exactly what we? Okay, perfect. Key site activities we have going on right now besides steel is we're completed our foundations install. We have underground drainage. Phase 1 is complete. Phase 2 will be starting. Underground utilities. Exterior grading is complete. Steel erection began on the 27th, and Winter conditions control, that's snow removal, making sure that the concrete is heated to the correct temperatures, making sure that when we're welding steel, that it's warm enough to be doing so. We have inspections ongoing as well. So inspections of all the work that goes to date, such as concrete and steel, all gets inspected as we go throughout the project. 4-week look ahead. Again, some cleaning up, snow removal for the next few days. That's going to go along with the steel installation in areas A and B. That would be the large 3-story tower that we have just over here. And install area E steel will be coming up around the 9th, and then we'll get started with that section of the building on the 9th. And that just goes this way, that section. These are our foundation plan. As you can see, foundations. Oops. Oh, sorry. Next slide. Excuse me. Next slide. Next slide. Oh, I'm so sorry. This is our foundations plan. Green means it's been completed. As you can see, we've all wrapped up on our foundations. It's a significant milestone for the project. It's getting these foundations wrapped up. All of our concrete testing has also come back way better within the normal PSI range, strength of concrete, all of that good stuff. So no concerns with any of our concrete placements at all. Next slide, please.
Can I pause you because you're cruising?
Mhm.
So if we want to slow down a little bit, because we have a very short agenda and we have time. So I just want to, if you want to, if you can go back, yeah. If anybody has any questions as he's presenting, just interrupt him like I did. He's used to it.
Maybe we can go back to the 4-week look ahead, please. There we go. Are there any questions on what work we're doing currently and what work we're going to be doing in the next few weeks? We do put this out on the website. Every week it gets updated on the website, as well as a small map that shows exactly where we will be working in case any abutters have any concerns about what work is going on the site.
I imagine you're gonna have to have another remove snow item in there coming up based on the weather projections.
Yes, the nice thing is that steel is our primary activity and we can do steel with snow on the ground. Concrete foundations got wrapped up, as well as the site work as in the previous slide. So we're in a good place with that.
Mark, when it comes to the work that's happening in the inclement weather, can you kind of just explain a little bit, like, as far as, is there float built in? What would be a showstopper? What can you work through? Things of that nature.
Sure. So when Gilbane puts together their overall schedule for the entire project, there is some float built in there based on industry standard things. For winter conditions, we're basically looking at the typical winter in New England, in Rhode Island, if there is such a thing. So, a storm comes and you have a day to clean up, that kind of thing. When we get hit with the larger storms like we just got hit with, obviously that would be above and beyond what your typical winter storm cleanup would be for us on site. But again, we've built in a couple of extra days throughout the project to help accompany that. So, if it's a one-off kind of a thing, no big deal. This turns into, every week we're going to be running into 12 inches of snow, then that probably would set us back overall. And we would have to look into what we could do to make up that time down the road with the other trades as they come on board. As of right now, we are hitting the milestone of having steel on site today, as you can see. We've had crews out there all day yesterday after the storm, and then all day today, getting rid of that mountain of snow. I do want to point out, like as you can see on the footprint outside of the building, our available space to store snow doesn't exist. It's just not enough room out there once you have the whole building built, as you saw on that other slide. It's just kind of roadways around the side, a little bit of a parking lot down at the bottoms, which we need for parking and for lay down areas. So we can't just fill that up with snow. So we're having to truck that snow out and off site as part of our cleanup efforts, which is adding to it a little bit. But again, it's being done by the site contractor, who's pretty much wrapped up, as you saw on this 4-week look ahead. You don't see them on there anymore. They were excavating and backfilling and filling in grade around the site, those kind of things. They completed all of that. They completed all of their utility work, all of the drainage is in. all of the storage structures which are underground, which are holding all of the water from the site from leaving the site, which is needed per code. Those are all in. The 2 sewer connections are all into the building from the street, so there's no need to go out to the street again. They've been reviewed and inspected by the town. Same with the water line that comes in off of School Street. That's been tied in the street. We won't have any need to have to go back into the street again for that. So their work is pretty much finished. So they're able to stay. We do have a snow removal budget that we've built into the project, which is the prudent thing to do, obviously. And they're utilizing that. So they're here now, kind of outside of doing work, so to speak. So it's not impacting the project. It's not slowing us down. We were able to get the area cleaned first for the steel, where we're starting steel on time. So knock on wood, there hasn't been any major impact from that storm. Now we know we have another one coming this weekend, may hit us, may not, from what I just saw. So fingers crossed, that would put us back a little bit. Obviously, it's a lot harder to clean the snow once the steel is up and in the way versus what we just went through when it was wide open and we could get in there and do whatever we had to do. So hopefully we start to get a little more mild on our winter. But questions? So area A, as Chris said, is the 3-story academic tower. That's what you're going to see going up right now. Area B is the cafeteria. So once we finish with this 3-story tower, we'll move over to what will be the cafeteria. So you'll start to see the cafeteria steel going up, and then below the cafeteria is kind of like the admin spaces and those kind of areas of the building. That's area E, which is our next place to go after we finish the academic tower and the cafeteria. And that's kind of the western side, as you can see out there. And then we'll just continue to work our way east, away from the existing school, and then finish ourselves out the back door of the east side of the building. That's it. All right, thank you. Oh, did you have a question?
Here are some pictures. Here are some pictures. Oh, next slide, please. Sorry. There we go. Here are some pictures of some completed foundations, some grading operations, and that's a really pretty picture of steel install on area A. That's a really nice picture. Might be using that for social media, I think. That's a good one. But I think it just goes to show that the planning on this project in terms of building in a winter conditions allowance into our GMP that we already own as part of our GMP. So that money that we've set aside is already in that $2 million under, right? So we're not going into that $2 million for winter conditions. We've set aside a budget for it, and also just being prudent and making sure that we add float into the schedule that we can pull from when things like this happen. Some more pictures here. Next slide, please. Some under slab grading within the building footprint, some drainage install, and a crane hoist. And then next slide, please. But before I get into Curtis Corner, are there any questions about any of the pictures?
Okay. No questions. Just really happy to see the progress. That's great.
Quick question. So we've built in the float in terms of non-advantageous weather. Does it work the other way around too? Or is there float where if not encountered? So if everything continued to blow out to sea for the remainder, are there areas for acceleration? Because I know we're on a really tight timeline. So are there certain stages that it would be appropriate, or float in the opposite is where projects can accelerate?
So I think we've committed to a schedule that gets us an on-time opening using all of our float. So if float isn't used, then yes, theoretically, we could maybe get people in the building a little bit earlier, our commissioning agent in maybe earlier, our furniture in a little bit earlier, but we're not in a position to change any of our milestone dates. But I think the goal is, of course, always to get teachers in as soon as possible, get them in their classrooms, get them. So let's hope next year is a typical Rhode Island winter and there's nothing on the ground. So
When- would
they're
you-
actually,
Sorry. Is that where? When will you be enclosed? Won't you be, by next winter, the building will be enclosed, you're really working on the interior, so it's less impact.
Curtis Corner. Sorry. I know, but still, all right, I want a moral support. Go sit down. No,
Doing a good job.
thanks, buddy.
Thank you, everyone.
So as this group knows, Curtis Corner was separated from the main body of work and not on Gilbane's guaranteed maximum price because we are looking to bring that school down in cost. And one of the ways we've done that is by doing some direct management of some of the work as opposed to Gilbane doing the management and working through some working groups to make sure that we're getting the exact product that South Kingstown wants. So key activities, as you can see here, this is our current schedule for Curtis Corner. You can see that it's broken up into 3 distinct parts: demo, fields, and site work. Demo has already been bid and awarded. Fields would be following next, and then would be following by site work. So demo should almost be completed as a separate project. And one of the key things about demolition is that, so let me just go through the key activities. Next page, please. There we go. So these are the key activities that have been going, and I'll talk about demolition here in a second. So working group meetings have been ongoing. There have been, I have another presentation that was sent as well that's got more information on all these that I'll get to in a sec. But in general, research and discussion regarding the track materials has been ongoing. We had discussions about natural versus synthetic turf materials, synthetic infill materials, the different types of synthetic infill materials. The evaluation for the bids, demolition and site stabilization are ongoing. Excuse me, they're still ongoing. And then we have schematic design documents for this group's approval. We're targeting 2/23. So before that, we will have schematic design documents for you to review. The school building committee would then approve them, and then they would come to this group for approval.
Ask a clarifying question on that.
Mhm.
So the schematic design documents for school committee approval, would that be? That's not for the demo and site stabilization, that's for the projected plan of what the field will look like.
Exactly. We already have approval from RIDE to begin with the other portions of the work. Yeah, we treated them as separate projects in the RIDE portal. What that also allows us to do is working with the town's finance manager, you might be able to get reimbursement on certain parts of the project earlier too. You know, it wouldn't be the full value, but every little bit helps. You know, if you can get $3 million from the demolition a year before, obviously it helps the town with their tax burden on the project. So, because RIDE reimburses what is substantially complete on June 30th of every year. So if the demo is substantially complete, you would get your reimbursement on that. And as a reminder, RIDE pays not just the upfront costs, but they also pay the interest over the life of the bond as well. Next slide is our budget. It's a very basic budget at this point. We're holding $3 million for demo and abatement. Field construction's about 5 million, site work's additional 2 million, and we have 1 million in contingency as well on this project right now. $5 million has been proven out just recently. I recently just did a project very much like this in Barrington, and it came out below $5 million. So it's use the same type of materials that we're going to be talking about here in a second, same quality of workmanship, sort of the general best at the high school level, right? So with that, we switch over to the other presentation. And we can just go right to slide 2, please. Okay, so first thing to just, the athletic fields are going to remain at Curtis Corner Middle School. They are not going to be located at any other site. We are now going to be completely demolishing Curtis Corner Middle School because it is easier to build the new work without it there, and it's actually more cost effective for us to demolish and build new certain areas. The proposed field location is in the existing field location. With that being said, the plan is to raise that field up to mitigate any of those stormwater issues that are present on that part of the field. And we do that with something called ground improvements. Ground improvements are literally bringing new material onto the site that is better drainage, and also to actually raise the actual grade of the site to mitigate those water issues. We're also going to be putting more new stormwater management around that area. All of these fields have their own French drains that are part of the installation. They have layers upon layers of fill underneath that are much better for drainage than typical soil as a typical condition on these projects. So there's lots of ground improvements that go on before we actually slap the field on. The track is going to be an 8-lane track. The field, as a parameter of what we were looking for in these stakeholder discussions, is we need to talk about supporting the frequency of use and the type of sports that would be playing on them. And the new site amenities that we are going to be including lighting, bleachers, fencing, storage. Next slide, please. Here is a rendition of the new field. You can see the existing concessions building to remain. Bleachers, we're going to be putting storage below these bleachers, and I have a rendering of what that will look like. Any questions on either the parameters or the early work or the site design?
Those are new bleachers, not the current.
Yes.
So, I think previously the desire, one of the reasons we're going to keep part of the Curtis Corner still there was to have potential for field house or athletic use at some point. So right now there's no field house in the budget.
Right now, there is no field house.
We had some extensive conversation around this. There are a couple different things that would have happened if we maintained that like L-shaped building. One is it would be literally abutting the bleachers. Like the bleachers would actually be overhanging the roof of the remaining structure because of the way we would have to place the field within the confines of the wetlands, and the way they're improving the field to navigate all that. And those bleachers, as they're designed right now, and we don't have to keep it, it's just, this is what we've kind of like floated out there. Each side would hold 500 fans. Again, that's up for discussion when it comes down to dollars and cents, when we start really moving through it. The other piece is because there would have been that building would have remained as is, but then buttoned up. And so we would have this beautiful new facility with this big, huge, monstrous building with no plan. And the concern from the town manager to the athletic department through the whole building committee was, would we ever actually get to invest money into it? What would the plan look like? And if our track history with South Road School and Wakefield Elementary School, would we actually do that? And also then if we're looking 5 years down the road or 8 years down the road, what cost would that be? And we would end up, it came to being like, is this really something we want to attack? And then also when it comes to bidding out for the demo, it would increase the price of demo if we left the building. And to the tune of close to $1 million savings by taking out the whole building. So because basically like the group discussion really revolved around the value and the ROI on leaving the building versus let's take it down and come up, because the biggest issue is storage. And Terry was all in during our discussions let's take it down. Let's see that extra $1 million put into the budget and then look at different storage opportunities, which Chris is going to show just an example of something that Phil's team has done at another school. But we were like, as long as the athletic department was really on board with the direction we were going, then we figured we were going in the right direction.
So I'm just concerned though, because didn't we approve demolition with keeping those? So now do we need to approve
There
it
were
with the changes?
two different, we went with two different bid awards. So we didn't approve there was no approval of just the one, so they went with actually two different bids. We got the different bid costs. And then I don't know if we've actually formalized I don't think we've formalized the approval.
No.
But we've kind of given like, this is the direction that makes the most logical sense for what we're looking at going forward.
Okay, I just thought we had approved something to go to RIDE that kept that L-shaped part of the building.
So the schematic design that was approved to RIDE, as you probably remember me saying this for the high school, the building that is designed in schematic design is very different from the building that ends up getting built because of the iterative nature of the Rhode Island school design process. So while we may have, the project is shifting because of the budget and us wanting to get, so there'll be no issues on our end. It's just that when we come back to you for DD approval, it'll be changed and there won't be the L in the building. You'll have no building as part of the DD package that goes to RIDE.
So, yeah,
Then
no,
from
I
that-
appreciate that.
And
I
because
just,
then from that wouldn't be able to be changed after
Uh,
significantly.
So after 60% DD is when we've got permission to start work on any of the actual new construction. So once you get past 60% CDs, the general rule is that if RIDE has approved you, you're going with whatever program it is at that point. So your ST program changes in every single community I've ever worked on from SD to DD, just because of the nature of the budgets and where you see pricing come in at and how things work out. But once you get to a point where RIDE has approved your reimbursement, which is generally once they give you the approval to begin construction at 60% CDs, that's when you can't change major elements of the program. You could still change the type of lighting or things like that, but they're going to say you're demoing a building. That's what you told us at 60% CDs. You can't keep the building anymore.
and when is the 60% CD
You pull-
due to RIDE?
Not for a bit. That was on the other schedule, on the other presentation. Give me one sec here. You're targeting. That would be in April.
Of this year, this coming April?
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate this because to me, that's a big change. Like last saw that we were going to keep it. And now we're saying we're not. And so I just think that we as a body need to be abreast of changes, which is good. That's what we're doing here. So I appreciate frequent updates.
And just for myself and probably for the public, just a reminder, the SDs, DD, like what are those terms?
SD is schematic designs.
Okay.
DD is design development.
Okay.
And then you have additional portions, 60% CD and 90% CDs, which are those thresholds I said about RIDE. Say, hey, we've approved the plan. The main thing is the triggering of the reimbursement is that when you get that approval, that triggers your reimbursement funding. So they have made an agreement that what they're approving is what they'll reimburse. So if you were to take significant scope away, they may not reimburse that. Or if you were to add significant scope, they may not reimburse that as well. That's the kind of where their stewardship of the project is at that point.
Now timeline, I think in the previous presentation, you're going to present something towards the end of February for this. And then they'll go to RIDE for approval by April.
Yeah, so on the previous presentation, the slide are actually coming before you for the approval on the field on 4/9, April 9th. is what
Oh,
the
April
school-
9th.
Yeah.
Okay.
April 9th.
I've been confusing.
Oh, April 9th and April 13th, the two dates.
Okay.
Ms. Massananti, please correct me if I'm wrong. Building committee has this as a revisit on the morning of the 5th. Because it was brought up and then we were up against it and had some time. So this will come up before the building committee again on February 5th, this discussion regarding that, regarding the full demolition or partial demolition for a formal recommendation then to town council.
Yep.
and
So then, yeah, that Monday, so the 5th is the school building committee, then I believe it's the 9th is town council, and it requires town council approval. It's for that component, does it need our school, is that what comes in front of us in February here on it's like February 20 something, I thought I saw.
Let me pull it up.
Yeah, there was something on February 23rd
Yeah,
coming
so
in
it
front of
goes
us.
town, it doesn't matter the order, my understanding.
So yes, 223 would be the approval
So-
for the schematic design.
Schematic design. Okay. And then April will be the DD.
Yes.
Okay. Whatever that means.
Design to-
This is an element, I think.
The drawings get better.
Could you,
So I'd like to say, I know you guys heard me say this for the big project, but in DD, it's really about looking, or SD, schematic design, is about looking how program elements fit together. In design development, it's sort of finalizing that plan. And then by the end of construction documentation, we know where every single tree is on the site, right? It goes from big broad concepts at SD to finalized floor plans and then all of your finishes and the types of seed, even the types of plants that we're going to be having are all within our 90% construction document design.
Chris, what are these, those sort of tan squares and lines on the top and on the right side?
Okay, yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
I'm gonna be an expert in all of this,
Okay.
and then like in 2028, I'll forget it all. I'll like purge. So along the end zone and where the soccer goal is, that is the long jump,
Oh, okay.
and up tippity top of along the tree line are the javelin pits.
Okay.
And then on the, I believe Phil referred to it as the D, on the, I'm really bad, left-hand side, you'll see that red, there's like a solid red,
Uh-huh.
and that's the javelin. I'm not the
Got it.
javelin, the high jump,
Jump or something.
high jump.
Got it.
And
And-
shot put is up top.
That's not shot put on field?
Yeah, well, it's always been up there. The shot put and the discus are
okay.
up.
Well, I just saw those circles,
Yeah.
the kind of semi-triangle,
Yeah.
they called like the,
They're up on like the lacrosse practice.
Yeah,
field.
so the field right now is showing lines for all sports that would be playing on the field. So you have, obviously you have football, you have soccer, and just so we're clear, this will be the first time that our field will be regulation size for high school soccer. So we will be able to hold like championship games. So that's exciting.
very,
Then there is also girls lacrosse line and
okay.
boys
That's about it.
lacrosse line.
I'm not, but yeah, I don't know lacrosse, so apologize.
I do believe there's something to do with field hockey on there too, but I'm
Field
not
hockey,
familiar
right.
with it. Nice.
All right, cool. Cool.
And is
Yeah.
is parking part of this project too? Are they parking on the field still? Or or Curtis Corners lot getting redone? Is that part of this project?
So the existing lot will stay as it is right now. I'm assuming it cleaned up.
Hopefully, yeah. Not like,
I'm not sure if we
It's
have
like a
gotten
BMX
into
course.
detail about expanding parking lot at all. I don't believe so. I believe it's all to make it a field.
Okay.
Let's get through this first round of cost
Yeah.
estimating,
Yeah.
see where
Yeah.
we are, but we don't want to set expectations for that type of scope right now.
Tennis courts will stay where they are. Admin building will stay where it is. I should call them pickleball courts, maybe.
So there's no impact to the road or anything like that either?
No.
Not at this time. I don't think it's.
We
part-
may have to tie into drainage, which might be in the road, but that's just having a police officer for a couple days skirt around it. And we'd work with operations, of course, to make sure that we're doing.
To me, one of the most exciting things about this is the fact that we will no longer, our team will no longer be in the swamp. And not only are they like making it better as far as for the field, but they're making it better for the area. So they're not just doing kind of what is needed, they're doing more. And with the new drainage and wastewater distribution systems, that's going to be part of this project. It's actually going to help the area when it comes time for the big rainstorms that
Just
we
like the high school.
mitigate.
The high school has this type of stuff built in as well to help mitigate the effects of sheet runoff. But again, the field itself, it actually has to drain. I think there's specifications. It has to drain within like 30 minutes to an hour. So and all that goes straight through its own drainage. It doesn't sheet off and go into the neighborhoods. It's got its own drainage built in. and like around the edge of the track, there are French drains. It's pretty awesome to actually see how fast it can dry out.
Where's that drain to?
Underground drainage, it'll eventually tie into
To tie into the sewers.
sanitary. Yeah.
Okay. So it's to be clear, it's not draining into the wetlands that are back there.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, it's gonna tie it. Yeah, DEM wouldn't like that. And again, Department of Environmental Management, has a say in all this, so they wouldn't let us drain into the wetlands.
Of course.
Next slide is an example of what a storage solution could look like. Next slide, we're going to talk about the different types of tracks.
Just to be clear, that was an example of another school. So that's a school, I think it's like, Caesar Rodney.
Somewhere in Delaware.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not around here. But those blue things that are built underneath the stadium, those are, like storage. Yeah. Yep. So it's just a presentation of what could be. They'll work with our athletic department and our high school and our admin team to make sure we have what we need here at South Kingstown.
Next slide, please. So 3 main types of track systems, a structural spray, a sandwich system, and a full pour polyurethane system. The next slide, please. In order to select a track, the stakeholder group have been evaluating them based on the following criteria: traction and performance, slip resistance in wet conditions, energy return, durability, granule retention, repairability, patching, aesthetic appearance over time, snow removal tolerance, and upfront installed costs. So there were a lot of different metrics that were taken into account by the stakeholder group in deciding which type to purchase. Generally, we really only see full pour polyurethanes at the collegiate level, or so. The next slide shows what is being recommended as the basis of design, which is a sandwich system. So this is just the layer of the track. This picture does not include the drainage below it. It's just the actual track itself. So it's made up of a polyurethane coating with EPDM granules. So what's EPDM? It's virgin rubber. So this is not recycled rubber. It's not your tires that we're turning into a track. It's virgin rubber. Depth of 13 millimeters. It does have an impermeable sealer, which means that the water will go to those French drains I was talking about that surround the field. It doesn't sheet off into the neighborhood. Rubber granules and a polyurethane base, and it's over asphalt. Life expectancy is 10 to 12 years with maintenance, and the cost is about a 10 to 15% premium over other products. Why was this decision made? Long-term durability, especially in high wear zones. We know that this is going to get a lot of use. You can tell by just all the striping that's on the field. A lot of sports are going to be using this. There's going to be a lot of people walking the track. Reduced granule loss, which means less operational costs and bringing some of that back onto the site. Easier maintenance and longevity, and a better tolerance for this high public and community use. I think there's been a long time that the track team hasn't been able to hold meets here, and I think it's probably in the best interest of the athletic department. They want to get as many events here at South Kingstown as they can.
This really opens us up to being able to, like I said, with the soccer, but it's also with the track. We'll have 8 lanes, which we've not had in the past. It opens us up to be able to host big meets and championships. And it also opens it up to be able to lease it out and rent out the facility and actually, make some money that we could earmark towards maintenance, going forward. The other piece I think that is really big around maintenance and longevity is our students use our track all year round. So in the wintertime, our indoor track athletes are training on our track. So they're clearing the track and running on it because there's kind of nowhere else. Every once in a while they can get in at URI, but for the most part, that is being used 12 months of the year, clearly with some exceptions. Snow removal is not ideal and they really don't want folks to do it because it's really harsh on all of the materials, but we kind of have no way around it at this point.
Yeah, and I think that's why you want to pick a durable product like this, and why we're going with sort of the better level of high school level systems is because of exactly that, because of the high use that it gets.
So I had a couple questions about, just curious, what's the current age of the track that's there now?
I'm
gotta be more-
42, so
I'm trying to think, it's
Multiple decades.
30 years, maybe 25.
Okay, because
It's old. It's well past, we can't host, we don't host any track meets. We can't, our
No.
athlete, yeah, it's.
no, go. And this speaks back to the longevity piece that was
Yeah.
on the other slide. 10 to 12 years doesn't sound like a very long time to me. So what happens? So I guess we have to start thinking now.
Yes,
Budget
correct.
for this again
So,
in about a decade.
yeah, but you don't, so it's not a full redevelopment, right? So I'm gonna use my words, not the official words, but it really is kind of like if you were maintaining a parking lot and you take it down a grade, like you would just resurface it, right? So you just kind of dig up the top layer
Okay.
and put it down. So you're talking maybe what, 1 to 3 million over the course of, but it was something we budget for over the course of 12 years.
Sure.
And not go, oops, it's 12 years, we need $1 million, $2 million, right? That, again, it goes to that CIP and reimbursements and having this. So not only have a bucket for CIP, but within that bucket, we need track and field maintenance.
I was curious, what is the year over year maintenance cost for?
so I just did one for Barrington, and they have budgeted $35,000 a year.
35,000 a year.
So
Okay.
that's it. They saw that cost as better than buying all of the equipment themselves, having to train all their staff. And when you have a contract, you have someone to point the finger at when damage is done, right? So that was a big part of their decision, as opposed to buying the materials or the machines themselves that do the maintenance of it. Was just have a contract, someone with insurance that they can point to if there's a gouge in the track or something like that. But
Yeah,
So,
over here at the end. On the corner.
oh, sorry,
There we are. I know, I project out.
you do. I thought you were over there.
No, I'm here. So, a couple of things. I'm sure that this system certainly has the kind of sponge and give in terms of knees, right? It's a good system. Yes, I am.
Mhm.
The track system. Yeah, we didn't get to the field yet. So I was just wondering, what's the difference between B and C? I understand one is for college. And I was just wondering, like, in terms of the numbers, how do those work out in terms of implementation and long-term?
So it's much more expensive upfront install
Well,
because you're
I
not.
get that.
Yeah, so it's much more
Much,
expensive,
like-
like double. Yeah,
Like double?
yeah. So
So it's
you
at,
can't reuse any of the existing track. You'd have to demolish all of the existing track. Like Kate said, you couldn't even use the asphalt ground up as a base. For this, you'd have to dig it all out. You'd have to bring in additional material again, and then you'd have to pour at least a 6-inch, I believe, poured rubber surface. There are all sorts of different drainage requirements and things like that for it. It's not put in high school specifically because of it's much more expensive to maintain as well.
Yeah, and it's even like URI most likely will not be putting that in even. It's more like for Olympic level, and it is strictly only school use. No one else is touching it. It's locked down. So we had to really marry what's best for the district and our athletes with also being clearly it's not like a free for all. We don't want a free for all on it, all the time, but also knowing that our community does use it. On a beautiful day, we have families that come and they walk their babies on their strollers or whatever it is. So we don't restrict fully, but
I
I
will,
can't remember what that,
I
what was,
will, I will tell you an anecdote that directly ties into what Kate's saying. So we have a project not in this state, but in another state where we did provide a full poured surface like this. They do not let the community now use, and that has been a media disaster in that community because people are saying only 20% of the people in this town have kids in the schools. The 80% of the people should be able to use this project. So um, I don't think we'd recommend it from a number, left field would recommend it from a number of angles. However, it's a great segue because there are some operational things that Superintendent Pedraza and the school committee are going to have to consider as we go into, once the track is installed. And I'll start with the snow removal practice. So again, this is something that you would have to, we would recommend having a contract for specifically this so that you didn't damage, didn't damage the track. Footwear rules matter, so you might have to set some operational practices in place about what type of footwear can be used on there. Routine cleaning is required, and then once it needs to be restored or replaced, it's not reimbursable at that point from RIDE. But none of these systems would be, so it doesn't matter which system you chose, it wouldn't be. And all three of the systems that we showed you do need to be replaced. Before we get into the field, any questions on the track?
So, that snow removal, you said something earlier, unless I'm misunderstanding, that snow removal is not recommended?
No, snow removal, they don't, so none of these companies will want you to do snow removal because they see how we do snow removal, right? We throw down a ton of salt, we use big machines, we're clumsy, we have to get a school open on time, we don't have resources to kind of putter and, make sure everything is exactly just so, especially if you've got a bunch of indoor track athletes that need to use it that day, they're not going to URI. So if it's going to be done in-house, specific training needs to be done. You probably would need to work out your snow operations to make sure that you have dedicated people to do it. It's an operational issue in general, but no manufacturer of any sports surface is going to say, yeah,
So
please
this-
bring a truck on and use a plow to scrape off snow off my.
And so, my point is that there's some, and maybe not from this company, but there's somewhere that's gonna recommend best practices for snow removal.
I would recommend if you are going to remove the snow and not just let it sit and melt, there are ways to do it. One of our clients does it with a hot water truck. They bring in hot water, but that's an expensive thing too. There are ways to do it. It's an operational issue that's kind of outside.
yeah,
my-
the
Okay.
recommendation is gonna be don't.
Yeah,
And then we're gonna have to navigate that within our district and within our athletic department, as to the best possible way to do it when it is
that
necessary.
doesn't void your warranty.
That doesn't void your warranty. Yeah,
That's
there's gonna be decisions that need to be made but again, it's more of that will be a district administration, athletic director type of decision versus, because they're just gonna tell you don't.
They won't even entertain it probably. Just be like, just don't do it.
That just leads me to kind of an operational question. So this remains school property and not a town park or field?
It is, Michael, you probably are better equipped to answer than I am. The town does not maintain our track and fields, do they? They do the area, but not the track and field.
I believe Parks and Rec does. We do they take care of the maintenance of the mowing and aspects, our facilities.
The football field?
Yep.
But don't we pay them for that?
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's our facility. It was
It's
presumably
under our
facility if we're paying
care,
for it,
but
right?
we have a partnership with them.
Typically what happens is that when priority is given, scheduling priorities or town ordinances go up where schools are given priority, they are given the scheduling aspect, and then after that, ground rules are set up for it to be utilized by the community. Depending upon how much time is left over, in most cases, that would then shift to the scheduling generally of the athletic director or the director of facilities, so those things can be rented out when they're not potentially in use. But only the largest school districts have their own kind of grounds crew for their specific athletics. Most share services with their towns
Yes,
and municipalities.
that is correct from my.
Also, I mean, we have a school there currently, so it was always like the tennis courts at Broad Rock aren't really school property, but you think of them because there's a school there. But once that school is removed, it's just going to look like the athletic fields of the town.
Not with
So
all those South Kingstown logos on it. It won't.
I just think this is probably going to come up again at some point.
No, it's pretty clear, like, because we have Rex and we have Terry Murphy on this little working group that is they work together so well with it, and it is, I mean, all of our properties and buildings are town. It's just under our Karen, what is it, Karen custodial, so and that's just kind of how it is right now. And the fields and what we're designing here and track will still fall under that umbrella, even though there's no school on the property. Like our administration building is still there, so but again, and the tennis courts are part of the school, but again, the community uses it. So there's just a distinct partnership there.
Okay.
Quick question on back to the parking conversation. I
Mhm.
was just wondering, like, how many cars can park on the current fields and air? I'm just wondering, did we just increase the bleachers, the numbers of people being able to attend between home and?
No, like, solid decisions on any of that stuff has been made. It was just, they put, like, it's like the potential is there, but we haven't gotten to that level of planning.
Right.
But as far as I couldn't even venture a guess, because you have the parking lot parking, but then for everything, people just park on the
Park on
field
the
and
field,
park up the road and park up in the upper parking lot. And so to even venture a guess, I wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah.
But again, like, when it comes to our planning for the project, that hasn't been mapped out to that detail yet.
So I can tell you what you currently have because we have it on an old presentation, but I don't have that with me. I could
Okay.
find it for you, but I don't have that with me.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about Kate's vision of, hosting, these big events.
Yeah.
And so you thinking in those terms down the road. Yeah.
I think we'll know a lot after we get SD completed and we can see where our cost estimates are coming in and where allocations are in the project. Next system is the field system. The evaluation was between natural grass or synthetic turf, of which there are many different types of synthetic turf, but those were the two primary ones. Next slide, please. The criteria for the field would be durability, again, hours of use, consistency as a product, drainage and wet weather playability, the ability to host multiple sports, initial costs, maintenance costs, player safety, heat stress, and environmental considerations. So the recommended basis of design from the stakeholder groups would be a synthetic turf system with hybrid fiber. The infill would be a blend of EPDM, which again is virgin rubbers, so it's not potentially contaminated rubber from recycled tires or something like that, and sand. It does have a shock pad. That is something that's an added product. A life expectancy of 10 to 12 years, and the cost is about a 15 to 20% premium over a completely redone grass field. Next slide, please. Some important notes to consider. Drainage needs to be excellent, which is why we have that additional budget line item specifically just set up for site improvements because it's about drainage. The injury research is mixed. There's no universal safer surface. Part of that is because when you have a one field and one competition level field and one competition level track. It gets a lot of use. It doesn't stay in the same shape over and over, as opposed to a synthetic field, which stays constant. Again, footwear rules. Safety does require controls, grooming and testing. Grooming is the spreading of the infill. There's an EPA report, 2024 health risk of recycled rubber. It is non-conclusive. And it's easily Googleable. Google, is that a word? And again, RIDE will not reimburse the replacement cost of the field in 10 to 12 years. So I'm here for questions on the track, on the field system.
When you were mentioning the ongoing maintenance cost of 35,000, is that including the field or is that just the track?
That's what East Providence paid for their field when they,
So the
what I
track,
got from East Providence.
the track and the field.
Yeah. Which came from Gilbane.
Okay.
So do we have an estimate of, I don't think I see it, the maintenance cost of the grass versus synthetic? We're mowing, obviously there's care that needs.
Paying the town right now for maintenance of that field. I'm not sure operationally what that cost is. So I don't know.
I don't have the numbers, but it's, you're paying for maintenance for either or, right? So yeah. No, that was definitely something we looked at, but the other component too is even if, let's pretend it was cheaper to go with natural, we are no longer, if we go natural, we aren't competitive in high school athletics in the state. We already have schools that refuse to play on our fields because they're natural and not turf that we play against. They've changed some scheduling rules where you have like certain games are scheduled for you through the Rhode Island Interscholastic League, but then there's a bucket of games that you're responsible to schedule yourself. And for those, there are certain schools that won't, especially their field hockey won't come and play on our grass. So it really is a game changer. Like if we decided we want to go natural, then we're kind of,
Your status quo.
we're putting our athletic department at risk.
And I think, listen, if you talk about a high use field like this, in order to do it right, you would have to take that field offline for multiple months of the growing season every year, because you need to reestablish grass every year. Your football guys are going to be in the trenches. They're going to be digging up that field with their cleats. Your field hockey, you're going to take my daughter's 6 years old and in field hockey, and she's already whacked the ground, take a big divot out of my backyard. So the significant portion of the fall season, because fall is your growing season, would have to be taken. You have to have no one on the field, no one using the field, in order to keep the grass at a level that's comparable to what a synthetic turf field would offer. And I think that's been the major challenge of South Kingstown for the 2.5 years that I've been here, is that they don't have time to reestablish any of the fields. So they just continue to deteriorate. And without any grass holding any of that soil in place, the soil starts to mitigate. You start to get cracks and divots. It goes underneath the track and wears out your track. There's a whole host of reasons, but we are not building any schools in Rhode Island that have natural grass fields, except for practice fields at schools where they already are going to have a turf field. So that is just the general way that it's going in Rhode Island and most places in general. Is if you have high use fields, they should be synthetic. If you've got a ton of space and a ton of resources and can close down fields and can maintain them yourselves, and then that's when you start to see people maybe have grass fields, but we don't have either of those situations here. And I know that maybe I'm going to make a little bit finer point than Kate did on this, is that South Kingstown, like other places in Rhode Island, is losing students to other districts because of the quality of their sports facilities. It is, if you look at North Kingstown's state championship girls soccer team, I think they had like 3 or 4 addresses that are Warwick addresses. So you will be competing with other school districts that are building new fields because of the way that school choice is here in Rhode Island. That's just me being completely honest about it. Is that when you have a school choice system that allows you to use the same CTE classes even though South Kingston might offer them because another district might offer them, it puts you in a position where what is the real draw of of having these students? And I remember from our analysis, I think South Kingston spends close to $2 million every year sending kids out of district. And while that's not all sports related, you might have some special education dollars or legitimate CTE concerns. It's not putting you in a position to compete for those sports dollars. And that's the honest truth about it, is when you're spending $20,000 or $30,000 per every student, that's South Kingstown taxpayer money that goes to other districts. You're not keeping it in-house. You can't use it to invest in your programs again and again and again.
You're getting into my next agenda item. So
Oh, I'm sorry. And also I need to say that this was part of the discussions that we all had when we were selling the bond, right? It's a goal to keep more students in district is to, if you keep communities here, if you can keep them in districts, it will make sure that South Kingstown continues to grow as a school community, as opposed to perhaps going the way of some of our neighbors and not going to be having a sustainable school committee or school community.
And thank you. I agree with all of what you just said. I did have a question though. Kind of seems minor at this point, but the pad that you were talking about under the field, it said 2 life cycles. That'd be 2 life cycles of the turf on top of it. So about 20 plus years, the pad. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Again, we so appreciate you coming in and giving us this update. I think it's important that we're updated on a continually basis. So I know it's always moving, things are always changing, so it's great to hear.
Maybe we could
directly
do
from you.
something quarterly. And then I was also thinking perhaps a tour of the site for the school committee. We could work that out with Gilbane. No open-toed shoes, maybe some better weather, but I've given school committees tours of sites before as well.
I love that idea. Let's wait till the snow stops. Yeah.
A nice day in October, something like that.
You
No,
have
that'd be
to wear
great.
a hard hat.
You do.
It's not optional like for the pictures. You actually have to wear a hard hat.
They do sell steel toes. It's going great. Let me leave you guys with the same thing that I said at the beginning. The project is on time and under budget. So
No, it's
not
exciting.
not every project can say that.
And to see the steel going up, that's super exciting. So, and it's already working. We're seeing, our high school is losing less students now than previous years already. So I think it's great. It's a very exciting time.
I think it reflects the quality of the education here, right? The quality of the education has never been the issue. I think it's, I have been to every single one of your high school open houses for the last, I think 3 years now, every single one of them. And you can see when I'm showing these presentations of the new school, people stop, they ask a lot of questions about the new auditorium is a huge hit every single time I've done one of those. Those are all prospective students that are coming in. I think they see, what does this have that North King doesn't have? What does this have that Narragansett doesn't have? When we're making that school choice. So sorry, Michael, I'm stealing your thunder on that.
No, we have great programs, especially in the arts. So it's nice to have a building that we can actually, improve the programs we have, because I always feel like we've got great programs in spite of the building. So be nice to have an area that is that these students deserve to be in.
Yeah, if you guys are doing such wonderful things now in this building, imagine when you give the teachers and the administrators an actual 21st century building with the technology and, temperature control and all those great things that this building will have. Huh? Only for you. The cafeteria is going to be a beautiful space. Tons of natural light, sensory area. It's going to be really cool. Oh, and in case you guys are ever in downtown Providence, RIDE does have an exhibit up of this high school that we prepared. It's on the main floor of their building on Westminster Street. The one on Westminster, the one right downtown, not the one by Classical. So there's a like a giant poster board set up with this project, and they've been showing it off. So
Oh, wonderful. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was great.
Thank you.
All right, that will bring us to our next item of business. Item 5B, discussion fiscal year 2026-2027 preliminary budget, and I will turn that over to the superintendent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Tech Department, for putting up the slides. As we go through this budget update, not only will we be at the end, and I'm sure as during the course of it, asking questions and having dialogues, but as we move forward, we will be looking for guidance rather than presenting various scenarios for us to select from moving forward. Ideally, I'd like to come to some sort of consensus in terms of a united a scenario of ultimately what our fiscal 27 budget should encapsulate. And we've got some difficult decisions to make, as we always do. But we also have some reoccurring unique factors, as well as we have some new unique factors that have recently come to light. I would also ask that you please keep in mind or jot down any aspects of this presentation to either keep or remove moving forward, whether that be the next time, which I believe will be in February 9th or 10th, where we'll be looking to put a gavel down on a preliminary budget that will then go to the that will then be submitted to the town manager, but as well aspects of this presentation that may or may not resonate when we begin our joint meetings with the town council. My thanks to the entire team for helping to put this aspect together, whether it be statistics or working in Munis or trying to keep up with how funding formulas, how those work, and the latest algorithms. My sincere appreciation to countless members of the team. So next slide, please. So the first piece I want to go through, and I'll go through rather quickly, as it will be, many of this will be redundant for this committee, as we did just go through them and or you put gavels down to approve them. So ultimately, the current status of our priorities and goals, the status of enrollment, the status of our current staffing, and the current status of fund balance are the first four aspects that I would like to bring into consideration. Next slide, please. Ideally, it is our priorities and goals that are going to be driving our budget decisions. To what extent that is going to be able to happen this next fiscal year, I can assure you that if not explicitly stated, it is implicitly stated that we are looking with the student at the center and trying to strengthen ultimately the educational program for each and every student. And that is not just academically, but that is also socially, civically, and that does mean all students. And our priorities and goals that were adopted at the beginning of this year will become evident as we go through this budget process. Next slide, please. I'd like to say that, I'm pleased to show that we should, or will hopefully be reestablishing the trend of not just reducing declining enrollment but our current projection for next year has us with a slight increase of enrollment. This is based off of current students who are currently with us. So students in seats, with the exception of pre-K and kindergarten. On those, we do rely on NESDEC projections until students are registered. So it is somewhat of a hybrid. However, for every grade other than pre-K and kindergarten, every other grade that is mentioned here are students who are with us right now. And that does include in terms of matriculation of this year's senior class graduating. So what it does not contemplate, and what we brought up for the first time in our last joint meeting, not about the CIP back in December, but that we now can take a look at, are students who may return to us because the grade bands of our two existing charter schools in district have ceased. So we have one charter school that is K through 5. So quite often we get a bump in 6th grade. Hey, where'd these kids come from? Well, in some cases it's because, well, they have potentially either moved into town and are new students to the area, but in some cases it's also their charter school has ended and they've decided to return back to the district. And then the same thing can happen in grade 9, generally a little bit less so because we still have out migration when we start getting into private schools, when we start, as Mr. Spiegel alluded to, athletic decisions that are being made. So it's a little less predictable in 9th grade. However, something that should be considered but is not contemplated in this projection. Generally, the largest change that we are expecting is coming, and as you'll see here, is coming at the K through 5 level. And we do anticipate potentially to be at kindergarten. We will need to keep a close look at kindergarten registration, which is kicked off, but we will begin our kindergarten formal program later on in February. We will watch that very closely, as the numbers are so great potentially in kindergarten that we might need to add a section for next school year should these numbers come to fruition. I would remind folks, or also included on this slide is the reminder that at the school level, there is no grade matriculating that the grade behind it has less sections. And what I mean by that is in the past, we've had a large class that maybe has, let's say, 3 grade 5s, but the grade 4 behind it only has 2 sections. And then we would be able to close a section of a grade 5 as the 4 becomes 5. That is not happening in any of our schools. We are not in a position to reduce due to class size matriculation or current class size limits, where we hit a certain age group and the class size max has now gone up to 25. Oh, great, we can collapse a section. That is currently not in place. And that is a good problem to have based on enrollment. Any questions before I? Okay, next slide, please. With consistent numbers in place, we take a look next at staffing. For this exercise, because we are offering a program, academic program, extracurricular program, sports program that we stand by, we are, for this exercise, not reducing any staffing as part of, again, our projections right now. Again, if we have declining enrollment and we reduce staff, okay. However, if our enrollment is not declining, then, and we want all of our students to have the same experience programs, then we need the faculty and staff to do it. Additionally, I would say that if we are going to make strides in our strategic plan along the way, at some point, if we do have staffing changes, it needs to be because we are taking a position and we are using it in a different way. We are recategorizing it. We are putting it where the data and student needs says it should go, and not because of a budget ramifications, or we're reducing a position in order to feed the side of lowering of lowering our costs. I will also highlight here that you will see in the 25-26, we did originally reduce positions, another 2 positions that are not reflected in 25-26. But if you recall back to this summer, back when it was warm, the opposite of today, we did add a grade 2 position in order to maintain families in the district, as well as have equitable class sizes across all 3. That was not originally budgeted. Additionally, because we had a loss of an administrator who serves as both an assistant principal and a pre-K coordinator, we were unable to fill that position. However, the need of both supervision at Peacedale Elementary School, being our Title I school and needing that additional support, as well as housing our preschool, we've been filling those positions. That one administrative position we've needed to fill with a dean of students and a part-time pre-K coordinator, all of which, again, are unbudgeted. Which,
Can I ask a question about
yes,
that?
please,
Or-
Steph.
It sounded like when we did that at the beginning of this year, that was sort of a temporary fix, but do we think that's the permanent
We're,
future? Or are we trying to find that single administrator again in the next school year?
we're gonna have decisions to make. We're gonna need to take a look at, when we get to the end. And, spoiler alert, it is not, the money tree has been discovered. We're in a great fiscal position. We're gonna need to take a look and weigh fiscal measures of which is, fiscally responsible as well as programmatically responsible.
Mr. Pedraza,
Yes, please.
just to follow up on Mr. Shear's question. And because I'm not in and out of the schools all the time, at Peacedale, we now have, if I'm reading this correctly, we now have a dean and a part-time pre-K coordinator.
That's
Is,
correct.
okay, and do we also have an assistant principal there or no?
Both of those are in lieu of an assistant principal. We could not come to contract terms and then with an individual, and then further outreach. The school year had started and we needed to get underway and have that supervision as well as that pre-K coordinator in place. So we needed to move forward.
I just couldn't remember.
No,
if there
we
were
do have the,
two
we-
assistant principals.
we do not.
there.
We have one assistant we are currently structured, or Peacedale is normally structured most recently to have a assistant principal who concurrently serves as a preschool coordinator. We were unable to find an individual with the necessary qualifications necessitating, again, a move for this currently it is a memorandum of understanding with the union that the dean of students that is currently at Peacedale is a 1-year only position and would be reverting back to a administrative position next year, unless suggested or built otherwise.
I don't remember how far back it went, but Ms. Massananti might remember when the assistant principal was added at Peacedale. We used to have a dean there and not an assistant principal.
It's not that
Yep.
long ago.
It wasn't that long ago, because I
There-
believe,
There was a dean.
yes, I believe Mr. Littlefield and Mrs. Myers were in the most recent contract negotiations, because the preschool coordinator used to be housed in the bargaining unit. It was removed in the most recent negotiations. Currently, 3 other special ed coordinators exist in the bargaining unit, but that does not include the preschool coordinator currently. So it was very recent. So 2 years ago.
I would just like to get some feedback from Mr. Rapport about how well the dean is working out.
Yep. I believe it's where, yep, and actually I do,
As compared to the assistant principal.
yes. I actually have a meeting with Mr. Rapport and Dr. Carson to talk about on that very topic next week.
not like foreshadowing or predicting or anything.
Well, we want to make sure that all bases are covered. In terms of I mean, ideally, yeah, we'd love to get one person who can fulfill all those roles. However, that wasn't the case this year. And do we continue that search and to look for potentially that person or do we keep something moving forward, such as we have? Making it a unique, because our preschool is a special ed program. Obviously, Dr. Carson needs to be involved and her recommendations weighed in as well.
And I just had a question. The dean and the PK coordinator are two different people?
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Dean is full-time and the pre-K coordinator is part-time.
Would
am
be,
I
yes,
correct?
would be
Okay.
part-time and currently an administrative certification is
Is
we're
required.
requiring at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next slide, please. A natural transition. I would say, well, or one that I'm pleased to say that we are able to do that, and even though those were somewhat budgeted under the umbrella of an administrator, both the addition of the second grade classroom, as well as any breakage on the wrong end of breakage where we are paying more for obviously 1.5 individuals than one individual. We have not yet gone into fund balance for those positions again yet. This also is with a word of caution, this is our unaudited fund balance. So our unaudited total fund balance heading into this school year would have been, or essentially was, about 4.7 million. However, we dedicated 1.1 million to this year's school capital improvement program. Additionally, we should have been last year $581,000 less than what we had. So essentially, the school CIP is this current school year capital improvement dollars. The encumbrance this year is what we did not spend last year. It was encumbered last year, not spent, and so rolled over to this fiscal year, leaving us with again, unaudited fund balance of 2.9, closer to $3 million current.
Now, does that CIP is the CIP that we're planning on for next year, or is that this year's
year.
draw?
The
So this-
1.1.
So this doesn't include any potential draw for CIP for next.
Correct.
For 27.
Correct. We are not currently, until we put a gavel down, we are unable to allocate fund balance until we know that it's not going to go to need to go to operational expenses. We are not dedicating outside of our, should all of our operations be funded adequately, and we have the ability to use fund balance towards capital improvement, we would have a willingness to do so. But while we're still using fund balance as an insurance policy, as well as operating potential and capital improvement, it would be fiscally irresponsible for us to do so at this time.
That 581 million, thousand. I don't understand the accounting stuff. So that money was encumbered
But not
last
spent.
year, but not spent.
Correct.
But does that mean it is still earmarked for something specific?
In this case, it was earmarked again for the West Kingston parking lot.
Got it.
So
Okay.
it was earmarked for fiscal 25 projects that did not come to fruition. However, it was not for a lack of need or a lack of a project. The project did not come to fruition until fiscal year 26. And so as such, was rolled over as an encumbrance to this fiscal year
Okay.
and has been completed.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions?
And we're gonna start our new restricted fund with the reimbursement for that parking lot.
Yeah, ideally, we will be, ideally when fully funded and we can use our reserves towards capital improvement to then become a revolving fund at a reimbursement rate far greater than any CD or interest rate would be a benefit to all taxpayers as well as the district. Next slide, please. Okay. Uh, so we started off with our current status. We're continuing with our current status. However, we do need to bring to the forefront challenges we are facing. Challenges that we are currently facing is the first one is a reduction in state aid. This reduction in state aid, though, and I'll go into it a little bit more, while declining enrollment has something to do with it, it is less so than some other factors that are contained in the funding formula, which is actually challenge number 2, what the funding formula refers to as community wealth, which is each community's ability to pay, and that is based off of property values as well as the town or municipality's income. Also, the unique challenge that I've alluded to numerous times, and also Mr. Spiegel alluded to, is that of school choice. And then last but not least, what we've talked about on numerous occasions at various meetings when talking about preparing for FY27 is we do have contractual obligations. Some of that are set, some have that are still to be determined, which is actually a nice segue for me to put out a reminder that again, that in all cases, these are estimates. All of these facts and figures, everything could change, whether it be programming that needs to change and funding students who move in or out of the district, what we negotiate, how many people or entities go out to bid, what the General Assembly does with its chooses to do with the governor's budget. So all of these things are still in flux, but these are our working assumptions at this time as we craft FY25. Next slide.
Mr. Pedraza and
Yes.
Ms. Vetter, I'm referring to future agenda items. First of all, I would like to request, since the General Assembly has convened for the 26th session, I think if we had a standing item on the agenda on legislative issues, because they come at me hard and fast. Sometimes, people will text me at 3:00 Tuesday afternoon. Can you bring this up? And I like to make sure that that's on target. The second thing I would ask is, it was mentioned at the town council meeting that they had sent a resolution to the General Assembly regarding adding transportation into the funding formula. And I don't know what the rest of the committee thinks, but I think it would be a good idea if we drafted such a resolution and brought it back to the table with regard to
We can put both of those on our next agenda. Yeah.
okay, there's another bill in front of the General Assembly that impacts teachers. I think we should at least bring it up. I'll email you with the information.
Sure, that sounds good. We can do that at our next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. As we take a look at our reduction of state aid, so here we see here we see the past 3 years and are projected, again, based off of the governor's released budget. Most of our decline in state aid, you'll see is a substantial decrease in high cost special ed funding. This is a formula that is, if the school funding formula is difficult to understand, the reimbursement for high cost special ed is squared. Is squared. Some of the main cost, well, one of the things that I'll put out there is that the legislation that requires it, it's never been fully funded as the legislation has written. And so you'll see in the governor's budget, oh, well, there's X number of millions also being allocated into this budget. It's not fully funded. Additionally, high cost special ed, in order to qualify, the costs associated with a student must exceed 4 times the per pupil expenditure. So if we've got a per pupil expenditure that's very high, as we do in many coastal communities do, your threshold to get to students who are 4 times is, for students to qualify as high cost, varies from community to community. Additionally, and I'm not sure how many years it goes back, but it is also a retroactive formula. So it is taking, I believe, the average of the last 4 years. So in order to qualify for high cost special ed, you need to have costs associated with a student where you are spending 4 times. So we would be above $80,000 on the education of a single student in order to have reimbursement be considered for high cost special ed reimbursement, as well as that is, I believe, and I will attempt to get back to this formula since I'm the one bringing it up, over how many years it is an average of. So it is very difficult. It is one that is entirely unpredictable, considering we're talking about students that can obviously range to age 22, that in many cases have both physical and mental needs, nursing needs, can be sent out to boarding schools, nursing costs, physician costs, one-to-one aid costs, all of which we're looking at various price points. However, my thanks to Dr. Carson for her work in terms of making sure that our special ed census is accurate and is updated regularly. However, predictability for high cost special ed. So I just want to point that out because that reduction is not because of declining enrollment. Additionally, so we are losing in state aid currently projected about $400,000. However, what we've included at the bottom is, and I'm bringing this up because it tends to get attention. Oh, well, we get money for non-pub. You're always talking about busing and the transportation. Wait a minute, how come I see non-public transportation? How come I see aid in there? A reminder is that this is a credit. This is also based off of last year, because this is based off of invoices paid the previous year that we get a credit for. And if we don't use it, we don't get the credit. But we factor it, it is factored in to the formula aid. Additionally, you'll see MLL or multilingual learners, categorical aid. That is not per student, that is our total, and that is included in the recommended aid. Additionally, you'll hear a touting of, well, we increased the student success factor by 3%. That is also factored in already in the governor's, in the number in that total $5.1 million. So additionally, so some of the things that will get questions or will get highlighted, essentially totals $155,000. That is already factored into the aid, the $5.1 million. Yes.
So you asked about, also looking at the layout of these. So First of all, I like the way this presentation is laid out. You know, much clearer about, and I know that was one of the requests from the town council to have a clearer view of things. On the high cost special ed piece, somehow with either an asterisk or a yellow line through that to highlight that that is something you're going to point to specifically on how that drills down to the number, because there's a big difference from 25, 26, 26, 27, right?
Yes.
And the same with the next one on the high cost special ed. Highlight that in a way that it brings their attention to that, because you're going to be speaking to those. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I love the picture on this one. There's kind of something very subconscious about that.
Yeah, it must be, because
Yeah.
so next slide, please. So I'm putting this out there as a separate topic. However, it is also related to state aid and how much and or how little each community and municipality gets. And it's called community wealth. And in FY 27, South Kingstown is number 7 in the state. And if you want to say the 7th highest or the 7th lowest, depends on your perspective. However, in FY 27, we are 7th in the state, behind Jamestown at 4.7%, Portsmouth at 10.5 or 10.3, Little Compton at 11.2, New Shoreham or Block Island at 11.2, and Narragansett at 14.3, and Charlestown at 14.4. We are at 14.5. And essentially, the 14.5 is what the state will give us as a proportion of their state aid calculation. Everything else needs to come from an additional source, and because federal funding for federal grants in most cases is supplement, not supplant, this falls to the local taxpayers. So let me just run through the other piece of this is that we are losing state aid because in FY 26, the state share rate for South Kingstown was 15.1. So the state is reimbursing South Kingstown less because of the coastal property values as well as average income. So again, what the state is reimbursing us or is saying we will pick up a share of is being reduced by 0.6% next fiscal year in the governor's recommended budget. That is not due to decreasing enrollment. The Rhode Island funding formula, again, is ultimately student count and needs. The foundational amount that the Rhode Island department sets also traditionally has increased every year. It is $13,859 next fiscal year. Students with higher needs, poverty, English language learner, special education, count with a higher percentage. The state then takes that foundational amount and that student rate and calculates, again, each community's ability to pay based on property values and resident income. In theory, wealthier communities get a lower state share percentage. So our state aid is our foundational aid, our total foundation. So again, student numbers and that base figure plus a factor of need times the state share. Everything else must be funded locally and through property taxes. I would also point out that we are nowhere close to $13,859 to educate a student in Rhode Island. But something for the General Assembly and others to factor in. However, this would be my case going back to it. Let's say that we're a per pupil cost for a district, and we now start talking about high cost special needs. getting 4 times of 13.8 versus 4 times of 2023, your ability to qualify for those funds is also impacted. Questions, comments?
Yeah, I'm on this again. Okay, so I have a couple of questions for you. This one, maybe nobody here knows the answer to this, but maybe one of our reps or senators will know and I can find out. So they are basing this community wealth on the property values and the resident income. And that's where they come up with that percent, those two things together.
That is correct.
Okay, so all of the houses like along the coast that are second properties and are not lived in, are they using the wealth of the people that own those houses too?
That I don't know. I know that
I'll-
I know the value of those homes are included.
I know the value, I know the value of those homes is included. I just wondered about the income piece. And if this is just, I mean, I'll keep it clean. It's unbelievable. Okay, I was looking for a good word. If there's things that the committee or the administrative team thinks that I could discuss with our reps, I've contacted most of them just to say, let me know what's going on. But I can certainly set up a meeting with them to discuss, I don't know, some of these unfunded mandates. So if there's things that you would like me to discuss, we can sit and talk about them, and then I'll set up meetings with the senators and the reps.
Thank you.
I mean, I think it boils down to the state aid just being, the formula is just, I don't think it's working well. I mean, I think part of the idea is that it makes sense. You want to spread the money around, you want to support poorer communities in the state, but when that comes at the expense of educating children in this town, there's something wrong with the way that's set up. And yeah, I would definitely appreciate if you talk to the legislatures and legislators and see, is there some way we can reconfigure this or rethink this whole formula situation or adjust the formula in some way? I don't know what the answer is, but it's clearly not, doesn't seem right or fair.
And I mean, we've talked about this ad nauseum, but one of the big things for us is always comes back to transportation is not included. And I think our transportation budget is somewhere around 7 million.
I believe with the credits, I believe we're somewhere around the 5 million mark.
5 million.
Five-
And people like in other districts, like don't believe me when I make that remark. But they, not only is transportation not included, but some of the urban districts don't even transport all their students. Pawtucket has, in my lifetime, has never had transportation from grade 9 and up. And like Providence and East Providence, their kids get RIPTA bus passes. So anyway, there's things that we can discuss again with the legislators.
Great. Yeah, in addition, much attention will be brought to the task force, the state funding task force headed by the Rhode Island Foundation, and their proposals. Again, that does factor in transportation into that proposal. However, the reality of getting that proposal to fruition for FY 27, but it's definitely something that we can draw attention to and get our legislative support and make sure we take a deeper dive into it. Actually, yes, transportation and how much we spend on it is a good transition to our next slide. Because whether we use our state aid to then pay for that transportation, actually, if we're about $5.7 million for transportation, which is one of the contracts that is up, or we use it to fund school choice. Essentially, what it'll come down to is all of our state aid would go to one or either one of those. So, as I've highlighted already, between CTE programs, charter schools, and state schools, we are anticipating, while we are seeing some decreases some places, but we never know until we have consistent data points. We're not going to, until we have a definitive trend that would not put the taxpayers at risk or us having to go back to the town council. We're going to err on the side of caution until proven otherwise. And so we are taking, in terms of these estimates for FY 27, we are taking our current out of district enrollment. Again, these are current numbers and were presented to the committee as well as the town council. We have since updated them to make sure that they are most accurate or our most recent. And you will see that the one piece here that is not predictable, though, and that we may also be erring on the side of that is going to be incorrect, but in the wrong direction, is again, we're using our FY 26 state reimbursement rates. So essentially what you'll see here is with 136 students going to a charter school, 92 students going to a CTE, and 14 students going to a state school. The school district pays out $5.1 million in tuition to other districts to fund their operations, faculty, staff, extracurriculars, their fundraisers, everything.
I understand the purpose of and intent of this slide, but I just want to suggest that we may hear the question, well, how many out of district students are coming into our school? Just to be prepared to answer the question. I don't think we should alter this slide because I think it's serving its purpose and but just to be prepared, that question will most likely be asked.
Okay. Out of district coming to us. Okay, thank you. Okay, next slide, please. So contractual obligations that have yet to be determined, and that we do make some assumptions in this exercise. For our employees, we are entering into contract negotiations with our second largest bargaining unit, the South Kingstown Education Support Professionals, or SKESP. Additionally, in our purchase services, we do have two on the larger end of purchase services that are up. Transportation contract with Ocean State Transit does expire, as well as our food service contract with Chartwells expires. So our assumptions moving forward. Next slide. So we'll get into our expenditures and our revenues in a moment. But here are the assumptions. On state and federal aid for this exercise, we are assuming that the governor's budget is what we receive in state aid. And with federal aid, we are looking at level funding for this fiscal year. Based off of that number has also gone down because of the amount or the time frame that federal funding rollover of unspent funds has been used, has now been phased out. So it was back a few years ago, you had years to spend unspent funds. And so actually, one of the hidden costs that was a benefit to South Kingstown during the lots of administrative turmoil is lots of grants were not getting fully spent, getting rolled over at a rate where they normally would have expired, causing when we came in to have surplus of funds, to have actually more funds available than there were people to hire. That's no longer the case. That timeline has shrunken, and we feel that this is still not as conservative as we could go, given the federal administration's indication of or reluctance to pay state federal grants. So we are erring with fairly conservative on the federal, where we are level funding this year. For employment contracts, our teacher contract is set at 2.5%. We are assuming a 2% for paraeducators. Council 94, our custodians, is also set. That was negotiated last year at 2%. And if we factor in administration non-exempt, also at that 2% for this exercise. For health and benefits, we were contacted by a member of the trust who urged Mrs. Proctor in our assumptions to factor in a 10% increase for healthcare. That increase alone is $1 million. For our other benefits, such as dental, retirement, we went to 5% for this exercise. And lastly, in other, for this exercise, all of the FY27 figures represent principals, department heads, directors, represents their requests to Mrs. Proctor. All of the previous fiscal years that are referenced off of past budget presentations. They haven't been, we're not going in and going, oh, well, where did they get that number from? Oh, was this audited here? Or what did they include in that? Because we just, while it's an exercise to figure out where people and how things were done, and it's a good exercise for us to understand, unfortunately, we can get too lost in the weeds trying to figure out why this was or wasn't done. And you employ people to do that now based off of their professional expertise. And so there will be some changes that we're making moving forward, and we will call those out when that occurs as best as we can. Not in this presentation so much, but in future presentations where you have a full Munis rollout in front of you, which will be at our next meeting. And then lastly, again, this is a budget exercise, if you will, where we are not using any fund balance. We have not changed any staffing patterns, nor have we taken a look at any programs. So that being said, next slide, please. So again, we are currently in 25-26, and we are taking a look at or doing a comparison here between 26 and 27. I've talked about, if we assume that level funding appropriation, again, I talked about assumptions. If we do not have a trend, we have a solid trend here. And so for this exercise, we have a town appropriation equal to that of this current school year, and I believe the previous 5 or 6. State aid I've already spoken to in terms of that decrease and the reasons behind it. We also see then the assumption of level funding in the state and federal grants. I will also put in a qualifier here that in state and federal grants, those are also restricted funds. They must go to certain places and for certain uses. And again, most often are used to supplement and not supplant. School revenue, or excuse me, school lunch state aid assumptions. And then other local revenue. Other local revenue includes not only tuition in, but also Medicaid reimbursement. That again, Dr. Carson and her department continue to do a wonderful job in getting Medicaid reimbursement. But once again, taking a look at the BBB bill and Medicaid reimbursement rates, what those are going to be in the future is still a point of contention. We then have included the one-time transfer from the town that occurred last year. These two were restricted funds as they had to be used for a restricted purpose. And also the pending use of those encumbered funds of $1.1 million. We want to make sure that those are reflected in our fund balance, which ultimately we see a decrease of a potentially in revenue of $2.1 million approximately. An odd hush. Next slide, please. When we take a look at expenditures, again, taking those assumptions, I would like to thank Mrs. Proctor and members of her team. Those salaries are reflective of people who are here now. So while we talk about students in seats, these are employees in buildings and with us right now. So these are the staffing levels, and based off of the proportion of whether it be contractual or assumed contractual, that is a accurate, or that is a figure that is based on the here and now and includes factors such as longevity, stipends, etc. So again, as I alluded to earlier, the benefits category, alone with that 10% increase as urged by the trust. And then the professional tech and other purchase services, again, that is tuition out, that is transportation. That is nursing or outside nursing services, agency.
We're renegotiating the transportation contract and the food service contract. So was there a percentage you assumed that would increase? Because we don't have a real number for transportation.
We're starting to get a trend on our transportation, and based off of last year when the district went from a 3-tier to a 2-tier, and we kept it level funded for this year. What we did as an exercise, or when we factored things out, talking to the surrounding communities who have most recently redone their contracts. What our transportation is coming in at, which I believe was about 5.2, 5.3 over the past 2 years. So we're trending right now in our transportation to be at 5.3, but we were budgeted for 5.7. When we factored that in, it ran about the 7% increase that we assumed, or that we would like to work in. And that accounted for our current level of funding of 5.7. So the increase is factored in, but it's factored in because of our decline in transportation spending. We believe will now be offset by the potential for the contract increase. Unfortunately, fortunately, that could also change depending on the number of bidders. Unfortunately, the superintendents whom I spoke with were not so lucky when they went out to bid.
And you made the assumption that there would be a 7% increase based on what our neighbors are experiencing.
That is correct.
That's a lot,
There were some that were as high.
considering price of gas is down significantly.
There was, well, yeah, again, there are people who have rolled over the past, 1 to 2 years.
Yeah, it's true.
Additionally, the side, well, in one case, it was like, oh, well, that's a large, that's a large regional district, but at the same time, we're the, again, second largest by land mass. So we are also a unique outlier, without neighborhood schools, without walkable schools for the most part, and with a 1 hour policy as well as state law for a 1 hour transportation time, all factoring.
Can say with unequivocal certainty that over the past 5 to 8 years, our various versions of our transportation subcommittee, we've nickeled and dimed as much as humanly possible. Like we've really vetted, audited, like hashed it out significantly with so many different lenses. There's not much more we can do.
And the more that we can, this committee approved going with that to audit our routes.
Mm.
And we'll be using that data when we receive it, anticipated mid-February.
Last year, we rolled over our transportation contract to this year, right?
That's correct. Allowed, yes, our existing contract allowed.
Thank you.
On the bottom line there, year to year difference estimate of expenditures instead of plus 2 point, an increase of the plus kind of pluses to me is a plus,
Okay.
you know,
Understood.
but your intent,
Okay.
what you're really trying to say is we've gone up, you know.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Next slide. We break down because again, these are in most cases, fixed costs and make up the bulk of the budget. We break down again, the anticipated increase in salaries and benefits, each approximating close to $1 million, if not more, if not $1 million, close to $1 million. So that's $2 million ultimately right there. Next slide. So,
Do we need to get to that? I mean, it's not that much detail, but do we need to go another level down in detail there to say? Because we have a line for salaries and benefits in the slide before. Do we need it this next slide that shows whose salaries is whose?
I mean, I think it's useful to show it. So you can see like exactly where the numbers are.
yeah, and there'll be multiple iterations of this presentation again, depending on changing factors that we can,
I
that
was
will go.
Sorry, I was thinking the town council version of it, that, I mean, I guess it's good to show that it's mostly going to teachers. That's what people want to see.
Okay, so our the next slide and our bottom line not up front, our bottom line last, and next steps is that based off of the assumptions that we've made, based off of what we know about current funding of schools by federal, or our best guess for federal, state and local. Our estimate between our revenues and our expenditures is a $4,254,542 shortfall heading into next fiscal year. Again, that assumes level funding. For this exercise, that is level funding. That is no use of fund balance. That is no staffing or personnel changes and no program changes. Again, what should come now as no surprise is that obviously without a major change in our favor from the state or federal level, I don't see any way we cannot ask for a local appropriation from the town. Essentially, how much we would like to, you would like me to craft a budget that looks for that or works on that. Needs to be determined. However, again, I would say that this is a long and ongoing process. Lots of things change. And ultimately, we won't know what our allocation is until April 27th. Again, that is barring any referendums allowed by town charter. Next steps, or the bottom line, is that we also will need to take actions associated with fiscal exigency. And that means noticing as well as investigating the use of people, programs, and fund balance need to be considered to various degrees in the FY27 budget. So tonight I'd like to open it up in terms of discussion for the preferences regarding the FY 27 budget. Also know that we will then, whatever the committee's feedback is, and directives to myself and Mrs. Proctor, Mr. Seeger, and our team, we will be going before the finance subcommittee to dive deeper into these numbers. We will then see us 2 weeks from today for a presentation where you'll have my recommended FY 27 budget based on this discussion and feedback. And that we will look to, or we will need to adopt, put a gavel down on a budget before no later than the 13th, as that is the last day that I need to turn in our budget to Town Manager Manning. And with that,
So is there someplace where there was agreement, I believe, that Carol, Ms. Vetter was pointing to in terms of the CIP where we would get some reimbursement back to us, right?
yeah, I think that
Wasn't that a,
it was an agreement of let's look into and let's see what we can, let's see if we can hash this out.
yeah,
Were you referring though to, just for clarifying, was it not that, but were you referring to the money that we upfronted for the geothermal? Cause that came out of our pockets
that too,
and it's being reimbursed to the
to the
to
town,
the town.
but they were talking about bringing that back to us.
Yep, but in the bucket of that CIP fund, which would be helpful because we need to clearly fund CIP projects.
Right.
Um,
Is
Is that
that
what you're
reflect,
referring?
yeah, is that reflected anywhere? in
That is not reflected here because, again, with when I go back to fund balance and currently in this exercise, we're not using any fund balance. If we use fund balance towards operations, that would not, that was not under the scope of those discussions under capital improvement. However, if we were to be funded at a point where we do not need to use our fund balance and we were able to fund capital improvement projects with fund balance, the discussion and potential for an agreement would be for those funds used for capital improvements that then receive housing aid, for that housing aid to get put into a restricted capital improvement plan.
improvement.
That also would live to some degree outside of this because it's focused in on capital improvement. They're restricted use funds and they couldn't be used to work on our strategic plan or, close achievement gaps. But again, would be a source of restricted revenue.
Right.
That would be greatly appreciated and is needed, but, and that also is on a timetable. It would go towards our maintenance of effort, but
Got it.
Can I just follow up with something related specifically to what he's saying?
Still. Yes, but then I want to move the conversation in a different direction after you're done talking about that.
I'm just curious if on this, the fund balance slide, if we should have the projected CIP number for, this is 25, 26, but if we should have the 26, 27 number just on that, because
Oh,
we're,
okay.
we're planning to spend that for CIP clearly out of our fund balance if we have it available, but it will also show what happens if it's not. Or if we take the CIP, I can't remember the number off the top of my head, let's say it was 1.5. If we take that out of that total, now we're already down to 1.4 million fund balance, and that that handcuffs us to any sort of use of it.
so are you saying on slide 6, taking that school CIP of 1.1,
And then underneath it,
doing a state aid
expect-
reimbursement?
expected school CIP use for 26, 27 minus taken out of that 2.9, because we're already planning for that,
That so
or we're not.
we're not, we can't plan. So that
So, but that-
exercise we did with the town council
Yep.
with spending the 2 million, I would not recommend us spending
No. That's what I'm saying, because we went through that with the town council. And so we have the plan, that was like the plan with the town council, that that's what we were going to do in a perfect world. And so we can't do that.
Oh, so show the loss of revenue.
Yeah.
Showing that
Well-
if we were going to do our CIP with our current fund balance, it doesn't leave us any fund balance.
That's what I'm saying.
Fair.
Just, and not to like put it again, like a little asterisk or something, just to call attention to it, because that's a real thing. Like if we do move forward with, which we have to, like those projects are necessary and needed for. So it's like, where are we going to get all this money?
So
Could we-
the CIP, the money we were talking about, that's not listed in the expenditure slide, right? Right, okay. So that would assumably would be coming out of,
Like an assumption that
that's
that's
coming out of our fund balance, like we have to find it from somewhere.
exactly.
And if we have to use fund balance for operations, I think we need to make that more clear
We
that
can't do.
that's like a loss of revenue for the town in the sense that we don't get that reimbursement back if we have to fund our operations through fund balance.
Yeah.
I would, I agree. I think we need to make that more clear.
I also think that depending on the guidance in terms of what is a final budget that we want to, again, the budget that I'm going to submit is also going to change based off of those recommendations. Once I know that, I can come up with, we'll be able to know scenarios, because if the committee, let's say, were to be putting, just say instead of 2 million in an exercise towards CIP, we're now putting it towards our operations.
Oh, that was my next question. So
Yep.
everything that was presented tonight, we have a $4.3 million shortfall. Is that our ask? Or do we want to try to make program cuts? Do we want to use fund balance? I mean, I think that's when Michael's like, what is the directive going to be? What do we go in with? Yeah, Kate.
So that was kind of my point with including that potential CIP, like if we're going to take it out of fund balance to put towards we're going to take any money out of fund balance to put towards the 4.2, then we can't do our CIP.
Correct.
So it's kind of like, regardless, we're going to need minimum 2 million from somewhere. And then we're still in a $2 million shortfall, right? It's like, so to me, I personally don't feel comfortable going in with a $4.2 million ask without seeing any sort of like, I understand no staffing changes. We didn't have a reduction in enrollment, so we wouldn't reduce our staff. That wouldn't make sense. But no program changes. I don't know what that looks like as far as our programs, like, are the asks reasonable? I'm assuming they are, but we haven't seen it. And so that's going to be questions that we would have to be able to navigate in the meetings. But
Well, this is to be worked out during our subcommittee.
Yeah, yep.
But I agree, it's a lot to, 4.2 is a lot to ask, or 4.3. But we knew we weren't going to have 600,000. We used fund balance last year of another 1.1. I mean, so, we knew we were going to have a $2 million ask. And then that's just on the revenue side. We have a 10% increase in health insurance, which is crazy expensive. And then transportation costs, tuition costs. I mean, all of them are going up. Our staff deserves raises, and 2%, it doesn't even keep up with inflation. I mean, it's a huge ask, 4.3. But it's where we're at. I mean, it's just, we haven't increased. We're not increasing one thing. And if we don't go in with this, I don't know where you cut, except then you really are looking at programs.
I think a few things. One, I think it's hard to go to the council without a suggestion of some kind of cut. I don't know what exactly that is. I think we have to depend on administration for that, but I'm not sure we can go with nothing. I also think we need to find to know what that number, this 4.3 translates into in terms of what tax increase we're asking for. So how much would they be?
Would you like that percent?
It's not, I think we just need to have it for them. We need to tell them, we're asking you to increase everyone's
I
property
have it
taxes by whatever the percentage, whatever that percentage
You
is.
can't ask
that
it
conversation.
by state law. Because
We
it's 6.2%.
Right, so we know they can, right, because they're also gonna have an increase to prepare for the bond. So I think we know we can ask them for that much. When it comes to the CIP, we know because they're also gonna be concerned about increasing maintenance of effort, right? But when it comes to CIP, we know that they can pay for that without increasing maintenance of effort. So we could also ask them to fund our entire capital budget without increasing their maintenance of effort. And then that frees up some of our fund balance to pay for operations, and it just gets us through. It doesn't change the situation another year from now. But there's some mix in there of getting them to help pay for CIP, and probably some sort of increase in property taxes that's gonna come, which can't be 6%. And then also, I don't know where we can cut, because like you said, we haven't had a reduction in enrollment. But I think we need a little more of those details in order to go for them, to them. The only other thing I'd suggest maybe is on this fund balance slide, when we're talking about how much we're spending in CIP this year, to add another bullet point that says how much the town is going to get from the state because of what we spent,
Like that, yeah.
which is like 3 and 4, well, yeah, about 3.
Oh,
4.
Yeah, we'll need to double check to make sure that the
Or
capital
what's the
improvements
reimbursement?
are part of the list of projects
Right.
that have been
What-
approved.
Right, whatever
for
the
reimbursement.
reimbursable
Yes.
amount is of that one.
Just a caveat,
But
because our
in terms of
previous
our-
DIP, just,
But it's just so I understand, in terms of our CIP and whether we want to fund it or not, we have to spend 3%, right? We don't have a choice about
Correct.
that rate. So that we can't choose not to spend 3% of our budget on those. And I know there are things other than the CIP that go towards that 3%. We still have to spend it.
correct. No, we can ask for, whatever percentage. The town is unable to increase more than 4% on the levy. So.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to clarify. I was trying to
So the-
jump in
the-
at some point, because I think,
the stat-
yeah, I think we can ask for that increase as long as it doesn't increase the overall levy by 4%.
Correct.
Right, okay.
And that would be on that's on the town side to figure out, what percentage of increase, or that they are comfortable with on the percentage of increase on the levy up to 4%.
I think this is really comes back down to having been level funded for 6 years in a row now, where if we had asked for incremental increases, 500,000 here and gotten it, 600,000 there, we wouldn't be asking for, in a position where we might need to ask for 4.2 million. It would be a number less than that. And it would make more sense, given that we have an increase in enrollment now, a potential increase in enrollment. I don't really see anywhere we can cut. I think we need to maintain our programs. We need to maintain our salaries. We need to maintain our buildings. We have a lot of obligations that, as Ms. Vetters pointed out in the past, we're in real dollars getting $9 million less than we were when level funded started. Even though we're getting the same amount, is it somewhere around that number? I might not have that exactly right, but our spending power is, huh? Did I say 9 million? Yeah. Yeah. No, I meant, yeah, 9. So it is a real shortfall that has come to us because of not asking for money in the past, increase in inflation, contractual obligations, all these things are factoring into it. And I don't see where we can ask for less. I mean, there might be some other, machinations we can do. Maybe your idea of having the CIP coming from the town and then having that, only asking for 2 million instead of 4 million. I mean, yeah, maybe we can make something like that work. But I think we have to go into the conversation saying we're $4 million short. Help us figure out where we go from here. Like we can't have a successful, thriving school system with level funding and a $4 million shortfall.
Yeah, I mean, the bulk of it is salary, French, transportation, and tuition, as it always is. If you're looking at program cuts, you're talking small dollars. You're talking, and I'm not saying we should do any of these, but you're talking after school programs, middle school sports. You're talking very small dollars. It's going to take a lot of those little things to add up to anything meaningful. So yeah, it's really hard to look at where the cuts come from when in the past, we've always made it because we cut staffing, but we were closing schools. We had declining enrollment. We were right sizing the high school staff. All of those cuts have been made. And now we're going to have an increase in enrollment. So, I mean, I agree. We're not going to be able to balance this with salaries and fringe again. So, I mean, I guess we're going to have an ask. We just have to have a strategy of what that ask will be. And I do like Brad's idea. I've heard Mario say this. Town councils like to pay for things, and so they like CIP budgets. And again, it doesn't go to an increased maintenance of effort the next year. So I think that would be a good discussion. I do like that. I think that's something when we start talking at this subcommittee, it's something we should look at.
Well, because it also though would be paired with an ask. Because yes, we would say, okay, this is what we need for our CIP, and it won't impact our maintenance of effort, but we're still at a $2.2 million shortfall and we can't cut staff. So,
Yeah,
but I'll be clear, you made it very clear at the end of last year's budget that this is the conversation we were going to be having. So if any of them sit up there and be like, what?
Yeah,
It
maybe
was
we should bring that
very
up like
much mapped out.
at minute 1 hour 45. Go back and look.
Roll the tape.
So I'm thinking, no, I'm not, I'm trying to think like the town council. I'm just, I'm trying to, I'm trying to think about what are they gonna be asking us that we don't have here? What's in their mind about what it is that they don't see here that they're gonna press us for information. So that,
Program funding, and they're gonna say,
Well-
because they're gonna say, I'm gonna quote Steve Alfred, did you guys all sharpen your pencils? Like that, will come, you'll laugh when it happens in the meeting, because
Yeah.
it will happen in the meeting. But, and that's kind of why I asked it, so no program changes. I understand that on the big scale, like we're not talking athletics, we're not talking music, we're not talking art, we're not talking on the big grand picture. But what does that mean? Like what other programs are there that we are not talking about? But again,
well,
to
that,
Carol's point, it's nickel and diming. It's not getting you a big chunk of money,
Yeah.
but they're gonna ask that.
they're gonna ask
Yeah.
that. So those are the things that we should be prepared to bring forward information about the programs, clearly that we're not interested in cutting. I think
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
we-
We had a slide last year about those things.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
I think
those-
it'd be informative to have some kind of like, what's our most expensive program that we offer? All right, if we get rid of this, you're talking about this, and all the other programs are less than that. Like, I might illustrate. I don't know if that would illustrate it in a way that makes sense, but
That's where we need to, where as we, whatever's proposed and what we go through. No. So when we do start getting into educational programs, we do start not only program costs, but as well as there may be employment or there are people attached to each one of those. However, what we need to balance is also of what the goal is or what the end result of building this high school is, and that are, what type of programs as we continue to eliminate, if we eliminate people and programs, again, our ability to morph those into reasons and people, other people and other programs that can become a draw diminishes. And it makes the building that's going to go up, it gives us the car, it doesn't give us the gas, the oil, or the driver. And we can talk about, I can put forward those things. I would just caution, or as we go through that exercise, people will, and maybe I overthink it more, because when I have gone around to people and talked about, okay, here's a pink slip, or here's a be just in case for fiscal exigency. Oh, well, we understand. Oh, we've been through this before. I don't want to do that, because also with a number like that, that's a reality. And, causing that consternation through people's lives, through people's families, as well as students who are involved in those programs and need those programs. And now they're up for elimination because they exceed the BEP. I just want people to understand that when we present them, we're presenting them as these are the things that are on the table. And here's a perfect example. When I talk about things that are not required in the BEP, that when we talk about those things that are going to come up, but that we more likely than not would not be putting on the table, and that would go, so let's just talk about the core foundation of what we talk about: safe, engaged, future focus. Safe, there's nothing in the BEP that talks about SROs. We need, and our community right now, our community and our school community, especially given everything that's going on, our SROs have integrated themselves and are essential to that. But if we have a cut, have to look, and that's on that list.
So I want to clarify. So two things, $35,000, I think is what we pay, right? For our share.
Right.
That's not touching this.
No.
So,
No.
but I think the suggestion wasn't to say, these are our programs, and if we cut them, it's to say, these are our programs. We aren't cutting them, but this is, so where do you want us to cut from? Because this is what makes up South Kingstown. We have no room to cut.
Okay, but then that's.
Do you know what I'm
perfect.
saying?
Yes, because
Instead of
that's
going,
the
oh, well,
right.
if we cut
Yeah.
this, then
Yeah,
Well,
we
that's
don't
what I
want to,
we don't want to do that.
we don't want to
That's what I
answer.
know we don't want to do.
Right.
And so as we go into that, or with that, as I bring them forward, I don't want them to be, because I believe last year it's like, oh, well, you're threatening these things again. It's like, no, they're it's not threats. It's these are what qualify under, and this is the quote unquote extra that we offer, but it's not extra. It's foundational. It's essential. It's, again, it's safe. It's people who go running towards danger, not away from it, for our kids and for our educators.
Part
that-
of our good news also was that we've stopped, or we're closing the bottom, the leakage of students leaving here, right? So I think we want to highlight that to a degree and be careful, because they could also come back and say, well, then why are you leveling on the impact of school choice? Why did you keep, you went down from 101 to 92? Why aren't we going to see an additional reduction in people going to career and tech places? So again, I'm just trying to anticipate.
Right.
Right. And think about where they may start poking some holes into what some of our assumptions are as well. I don't know how much that actually impacts. I mean, what is it per student for career tech? 20 plus.
So,
Is
but
that-
I thought about that too. But we have
Yeah.
things going in both directions on that budget slide.
Yeah,
So you're conservative in one way by not decreasing that number,
right.
but you're conservative on the opposite side by not increasing how much you're paying per
Per
student.
student.
So those things balance themselves out. We could, if we were going to do what you want to do, we'd have to do the other one too.
Right.
And I don't think it would, but maybe we should show
know.
that,
I don't
hey,
know
we're
what the numbers
optimistic.
look
We're
like.
gonna,
And that,
Yeah.
and that
but-
rate is set by the state, so that we're not,
Right.
that's not something that.
I mean, additionally, I don't think the number is going to change that significantly.
No.
Even if we do bring more people back or have less people going out, I don't think it's not going to make up a $4 million shortfall. It might make up 500,000, might make up $1 million if we're lucky. But
well,
it's,
I think maybe if you're talking about 11 more kids in the district times 20,000, so you're talking 200,000.
220,000. Yeah. It's minimal. But, I mean, it's important to highlight that we are bringing kids back in, and we have, if we can show that we have fewer going out, that's great. But I think from a budgetary perspective, it's not really, it's a great story, but I don't think it really helps our numbers.
So we don't have another meeting with the town council until March, right? We're meeting with the
no,
council on
no.
February. With the council.
You're correct. We have one in March and two in April.
Isn't it the other way around? All right, it doesn't matter. We have to submit this budget to the town manager before we have another meeting with them.
Right. It has to be
So-
submitted to
I like
13th.
comment,
February 13th, we have to submit the budget to the town.
that when you said, we kind of can, you said it much nicer than this, but we can throw it back to them and say, okay, here's what we've got. What would you cut? And because it doesn't seem to me like any one of us can come up with any great suggestions.
So it wasn't even and I
Yeah,
agree with
it
you,
is
it's not,
how you're gonna pay for it, not how you're gonna cut it.
that's what I was just gonna say. It wasn't what would you cut? It's, this is what it costs to run our district. How are we gonna pay for it?
Yeah, I like that, because I think that was one thing I mentioned in previous discussions outside meetings, is that I want to present them with, like, this is what it is. Like, this is our budget. Like, don't give options. Don't say, oh, if we do this and that, and no, just this is our ask. This is what we need. Help us fund it. Help us get there. If you want our kids to thrive and have a quality education, this is the cost. And especially where we're not able to close schools, we're not able to realize savings anywhere else. We were able to absorb level funding in previous years. Those levers are gone. Like, we don't have those anymore. We don't have a declining enrollment where we can, we did it. We did everything we could
Yeah.
to keep the budget as low as possible for as long as possible. And we're past that point where we can keep doing that.
They can sell
So-
to schools. They can sell South Road and Wakefield, like,
And let us have that, yeah. So
Right. And
I-
I mean, well, it's not our job to solve their
no, but I'm saying like,
problems. But
yeah,
you're
but if
absolutely
they
right.
want, like, if they're, how are we gonna fund it? Like, how, help us fund our students and our school? We're investing, we're demonstrating that we're investing in our school, and we're seeing positive repercussions from that. So help us keep that moving forward.
Yeah.
Is really the ask, regardless of if it's 2.9 and they pay 1.5 in capital improvement, it still equals the same dollar. It just is what's gonna be rolled over year to year, right?
Right.
So
Right.
help us figure out how to make that work.
So I have a comment and a question. In previous years, and to my recollection, without looking this up in my notes, pretty much every year, the trust gives us that percent of what they anticipate the benefits will go up. And I assume they gave the town the same number, so nobody over there should be surprised. But it seems to me that as we get like whittling things down and getting down to the final, approach to that April date, that percent has gone down. I know that's not gonna give us, it's not gonna make us $4.2 million, but it's gonna give us something. My other thing is a question. So so you talked about, Mr. Pedraza, you talked about the federal, state and federal grants. And, you said that, we had some grant money that hadn't been spent when it was anticipated to be spent. And, now we can't do that. Do we have someone on our staff that looks out for that grant money, looks out for other grant money? I thought it was you, but I didn't want to dump on you, Mr. Seeger.
Yes. So Mr. Seeger oversees Title I, Title II, Title III, and Title IV aid, where as well as any local state, depending on the nature of those, but the vast majority of state grants. They've been few and far between. The few that they've announced that we've been eligible for, we've applied. Rhode Island Healthy Schools, which we applied for and got, but was just a few thousand. We do not have this year. Last year, you may remember the arts grant initiative that the state put out that was close to $100,000. Get the foam out was another. Those are all gone. We've met those.
Okay,
But yes, we've got.
but Mr. Seeger, you keep watch on that.
And then IDEA is Dr. Carson.
And, okay, that makes sense to me. I can't find anything else. The money tree evidently did not grow in back of it.
Just- Just
Mm.
two things.
Someone
two-
forgot to water it.
Someone forgot to water it, okay.
And this melts, we'll get plenty of water. Just two things. One, that 10% number from the trust is low compared to what private industry is seeing. So I would not count on that 10% going down as someone who
Thank you. for the
going out to get
information.
one. So it's, if you're going out in a private market, it's higher than that right now. The other is on this slide, number 3, I think is sort of, when we go to the town council, sort of contradicts what we're talking about our approach being. So rather than saying, hey, that bullet sort of says, we're gonna figure out how to find that 4.2 and come back to you because we assume that you're not gonna give it to us. I would either reword that to something like, how are we gonna work together to do that? Or leave it out, but that doesn't match with the approach that we're talking about right now.
And so to that end, that's for this committee tonight. Once we get, I just need folks to know that, again, that's what you've hired us to do, and what we've got a responsibility to do. Well, how we present that and what we act on is totally separate, but I can see that, and we'll definitely, and I'm hearing that there's some agreement that if we can use this template, or that this presentation is along the lines of something that we can stand behind or would like to see when we do go into joint meetings. Granted, we can make major changes, slight changes here and there, but based on what I'm hearing, we can use this as a template moving forward, at least for this fiscal year. And then depending on what scenarios we have to present moving forward, we can change.
I
But that
think
would
it's,
definitely come out. And in that case, if we were to keep it, that would definitely come out, because that was for this audience right now.
I think it's a well laid out presentation. I think there's just a few tweaks we talked about where we can maybe make things a little more clear, make that capital improvement budget more obvious of what we're going to be planning to pay next year from it, from fund balance and all that. So I like the way it's laid out. I think it's the most logical and understandable way we presented it. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how the town council says it's not good for them or they don't understand it. So I'm sure it doesn't matter what we give them, they're gonna say something, but that's okay.
Well, I just thought of a question that they will ask. They will ask if we're gonna have a surplus this year. And so we might think about how we want to answer that. The answer is no, we're not going to have a surplus. We had to hire 2.5 people that weren't budgeted for. And we are going to manage it so that we don't have to reach into fund balance for those expenses. But we do need to know what to say when they ask, are you going to have a surplus? Because that's one question they will ask.
I think the presentation as we saw it tonight is easy to follow, clear. I think it's very good. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
From an aesthetic, I like the layout. I like the flow. I'm going to suggest that you use a little bigger font. Because even with my little glasses, I was struggling. And I can two off the top of my head are going to make comment about the font.
Yeah.
But even just looking at number 2, you have like all this white space in these tiny little font. So that's, and then on the other slides, I love the pictures because it demonstrates clearly that we are all about, we're here for our students. Maybe make the pictures just a smidge smaller so you can make the font and or the chart, the like reduction of state aid. It's kind of like that little chart is like mooshed. If we can make that a little bigger. I know we like the muscle guy. He's really cool, but we can make him a little smaller and make the facts just a little bigger. That will just be helpful, and it will be one less thing that we can be needled over. I had one more thought and then I lost it, so I guess it wasn't that important. So, but other than that, I really do like the layout. I think it's the only concern, I know it was, the only concern that I have is that they will want more line items.
And we'll provide
That's
that.
the only, just to be prepared, like when they say, how much are you paying for this? Or how much are we getting for that? Just be able to pull the information up so you can give it to them because they're gonna do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that'll be spread out within. So in terms of our budget submission to the town, all of those in terms of whether they be spreadsheets or pulled from UCOA to show actual to date will be included in the budget submission. The presentation, we still have lots of time because before we even get to present, we get the reaction from the town manager's budget and what he's going to put in. But, I do need, I don't see right now at that number, and given that it's above a 6% increase. And given what they presented at the initial budget meeting with a 4% increase and payment towards debt, I don't see any way that I could put forward a budget that would not use fund balance without getting substantially into, programs. And so at least some of fund balance, because again, like you said, they're going to potentially want something if we're for equal and or a little bit of increase in enrollment. All of those assumptions, if we're going to hold again this school year, again, if it was good for our students this year, we need to do it again next year, as well as continue to try and make progress. But they could say, okay, that's all well and good, but we have to pay, that might be 4% on the levy. I don't remember all, somewhere around there. They said, we can't give it all to you. We've got our own contractual obligations. I will need to put together a budget that does, at the very least, use fund balance to try to get to a number that they could fund us at.
Well, and I think that goes to that 26, 27 CIP conversation where it's okay, we're going to use fund balance to help with the shortfall. We have this XYZ number. I can't remember what it was. I think it was 1.5 or maybe even closer to 2.
It was 2.
So then let's pretend we use $1 million out of fund balance and then we use we have to pay for our CIP. That's our entire fund balance. Like we can't do that. So, okay, we'll do $1 million out of fund balance. You help us fund our CIP. We still then are short $2 million. How again, with, help us find a way to get there together. Because at the end of the day, if they level fund us again, we're being funded in 2026 at the 2019 cost of living,
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
House values have stayed the same.
Now, if you just look at the rate of inflation, it's like $10 million. Just to keep up with inflation in 2019's dollars, they would have to add 10 million to our budget for us to have kept pace just with inflation.
Can you find a place to put that in, Mr. Picasso?
not to be argumentative in the meeting, but,
yeah,
but
but
be ready
I said
for it.
that-
You have to be ready for
I
it.
said, every time I go in, I'm like, yeah, but in real dollars,
Yeah,
it's a $9 million shortfall
Yep.
in real dollars. So, but they don't want to hear that, they wanted to level fund us. We were able to do it, but we did it last year. And in doing so, they caused a structural deficit, and we knew we were going to
well,
be
you
here
told
this
them
year.
that.
Yeah.
Those were your exact words as we were walking out the door.
And they know that because it was said last year. So they're expecting us to come in with a higher ask. I think they're expecting more like 2 million than 4 though. That's where we're at.
So the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. You keep level funding, that's insane, right? I mean, that's the bottom line. But I was just wondering, because we started talking, you were trying to get an understanding of where we were at with the presentation and the flow. Do you see this as being what you would present, or is there something else that you're gonna be doing with this before it's sent to the town manager? And then we're gonna get to see whatever changes you're making?
So-
Before that goes,
Yes.
he gets the budget, he doesn't get the presentation, he gets the
Right.
number.
Right.
get-
We don't have
Correct.
another presentation until mid-March.
Right,
So
okay,
yeah,
so
it's
we'll
just,
see this again
So
in
you-
2 weeks, we'll vote on a budget to go to the town
to
council.
go to the town council. And then how we lay that out will be in March.
Yep, how we stay, and then the town manager will present his recommended allocation.
Right.
To across all departments, and then we will know what, if any, was accepted in our budget amount, and then unfortunately, at that point, react from there. It is, but again, there will be a budget that I submit, unless you're direct, unless you want to direct me to submit a budget that incorporates this, I will need to take some actions and present those to you. We'll go through the finance subcommittee, but we'll put some actions in order to show that, hey, here are some actions that we can take. And again, hopefully some of these things come back better. There's certain things that we can't anticipate. Breakage, retirement, numbers that come back lower, workman's comp potentially coming in at different. So those are factors that are still there. However, again, wouldn't budget on them. And additionally, there will be things that regardless that we'll need to take, steps we'll need to take to protect ourselves, based on state law, should we not receive any of that funding. That will be necessary. And basically use all of the nickels and dimes to create 20s, not dollars.
All right. The next thing on our agenda is actually more of an update, school building committee update from Kate, but do we need that since Chris was here? Okay, so we're just gonna move on from that.
Motion to adjourn then?
Can I just?
Is there
make a
one more
comment
item?
Before we adjourn?
It's like Michelle wants to make a comment. Go ahead. Michelle.
I want to end the meeting on a positive note, okay? And so I want everyone to know that I had some time on my hands when it was snowing. And I was looking at social media and there were two different people, I have no idea who they are, who posted that they were moving to town and their kid was gonna go to West Kingston Elementary. And then the other one was they were moving to town and their kid was gonna go to Peacedale. Do people know anything about it? Because I've already put in for the lottery for the charter school. And I made myself sit there and read all the comments. Every single comment was phenomenally positive. And there were a few comments thrown in there. My kids went K to 12 in South Kingstown schools and had a fabulous education. And by the way, I didn't post any of those comments under a fictitious name. But I just figured that we needed to hear something positive, and that like did my heart good. So now, did you
Thank
make
you,
a motion
Michelle.
to adjourn, Stuart?
You can second.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.
That was good.